Cecily, darling, are you sleeping? Called a loud voice from beneath the window. Well, if I was, I'd certainly be awake now. She poked her head outside. No, I was riding home to my parents. Then come down at once. Of course. With a sigh, Cecily grabbed the letter and headed downstairs. Champagne? Said Kiki as Cecily approached the table on the veranda. Her godmother sat alone, a bottle in an ice bucket and a pack of Lucky Strikes, apparently her only sustenance. No, thank you. I'm still full from lunch. Please accept my apologies, honey. Kiki sighed, taking a large slug of champagne and a drawer on her cigarette holder. The party went on late last night. Cecily didn't think Kiki looked sorry at all. So, what did you think of my friends? I hope they were nice to you. I certainly told them to be. Oh, they were all very kind, thank you. Well, you were a hit with Alice. She's asked us over to tea at Wanjohi Farm tomorrow. Did you like her? Why, yes. She was certainly interesting. Oh, she's that all right. You know that a few years ago, Alice was on trial for shooting her lover in Paris at a railway station. Oh my, that was her. Cecily remembered her mother's mention of the scandal. The very one. Luckily, she shot him in Paris, the city that understands love, and didn't go to jail for attempted murder. She is seriously crazy, and I just adore her. She did tell me that she once had a pet lion cub. Dear little Samson, yes. She only let him go when he was eating 2 zebras a week. Kiki took another mouthful of champagne. So, Aliki has been looking after you. Oh, yes, he's marvelous, Cecily agreed. I was wondering whether it was possible to post this letter to my parents. That's no problem at all. Give it to Aliki and he'll see to it for you. Okay. Where is the nearest town to here? Depends what you want to do or buy. Gilgil is the nearest, but it's a mighty dump with a railroad that runs right through it. Then there's Nairobi, of course, where we landed yesterday, and Nyeri, which is some distance from here on the other side of the Aberdare Mountains. But it's popular with the Wanjohi Valley lot. Wanjohi Valley? Where most of the crowd who were here last night live, including Alice. You'll see it tomorrow when we drive up for tea with her. Now, I'm not feeling so great today. Like you, I'm probably suffering from the effects of our journey, on top of the bronchitis. Aliki can show you the library if you need a book to read, and we'll meet for dinner at 8 tonight, okay? Okay. As if by magic, for there was no physical gesture Cecily could discern, Aliki appeared by his mistress's side. Kiki stood up, took his arm, and walked back into the house. As Cecily dressed for dinner that night, she thought about all the things she knew, or had overheard, about her godmother. That she was an heiress, and, more importantly, related to both the Vanderbilts and the Whitney family. She'd divorced her first husband, then married Jerome Preston. Cecily remembered meeting him as a young girl and being struck by his handsome looks and jovial nature. Her whole family had been shocked by his sudden and unexpected death 5 years ago. Then her mother had told her Kiki's brother-in-law had died a couple of years ago, and only recently her beloved cousin, William, had suffered paralysis due to an automobile accident. Now here was Kiki, lying in her bed a few yards away, alone. And so sad, Cecily sighed, the thought striking her out of the blue. She is so sad. Chapter 14. I am afraid my mistress is feeling unwell again today, Aliki announced as Cecily appeared on the terrace at noon the following day, ready to drive to tea at Alice's farm. Oh dear, it's nothing serious, is it? No, she will be quite well by tonight, I am sure, Mem Sahib. But she says you are to go alone, and take this as an apology. Aliki was holding 2 wicker baskets, one full of bottles of champagne, and the other covered by a linen cloth, which Cecily could only presume contained food of some kind. She followed Aliki round to the back of the house, and he opened the rear door of the Bugatti, which had been cleaned and polished so thoroughly that the sun glared off its white roof. The interior was burning hot, and Cecily perched close to the open window, fanning herself violently on the cream leather seat. This is Makena, Mem Sahib. He is driver, who will take you to Wanjohi Farm. The man, dressed in spotless white, bowed to her. She vaguely remembered him from their journey here. I will see you later for dinner, Miss Cecily, said Aliki as he closed the door and Makena started the engine. The drive along the lake was a pleasant one, but it was only as they passed through a small settlement, which Cecily realised must be Gilgil as she saw the train line running right through the centre of it, that it began to become interesting. She could feel the car's powerful engine straining to bump upwards over the rough, rutted road, which would be considered no more than a narrow pathway in America, and she smiled as she thought how typical it was of Kiki to have a stylish but fundamentally unsuitable car for the Kenyan terrain. In the distance, the scenery became increasingly lush and verdant, and she could see a range of mountains, their peaks covered in misty cloud. She only wished she could ask McKenna what they were called, but after a couple of attempts to make conversation, she realised his English was limited to a few stock phrases. She noticed the temperature was growing considerably cooler, with a brisk wind that blew her hair about her face. The scents here were different to those at Mondui House. She could smell the metallic charge of future rain in the air and wood smoke emanating from the various farms they passed. "Goodness," she said, as she saw houses that would not have been out of place in the English villages she had passed through on the way to the airfield in Southampton. Ditto the impeccably kept gardens, which were blooming with roses, trumpet lilies and jasmine, filling the air with their rich, sweet fragrance. 2 hours after they had left, the Bugatti pulled into the drive of a U-shaped single-story house, featuring similar oversized roofs to the others she had noticed on her way. She presumed it must be to keep the sun out of the rooms, but as she stepped out of the car, Cecily gave a small shiver in the biting wind. Dark green bushes bordered the lawn, and Cecily saw an antelope was nibbling the grass. It glanced up at her with its large brown eyes, then calmly returned to its grazing. "Hello, darling! You made it!" Cecily turned to see Alice approaching her, wearing an oversized cotton shirt and a pair of khaki culottes. "Oh, yes, hi. Hello, Alice. Forgive me, I was transfixed by the view. It's spectacular," said Cecily as she gazed down across the verdant valley, at the bottom of which ran a river. "It is quite extraordinary,